Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 7. It is called Dominion. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And no, it's not the prequel to The Exorcist. That's a joke that 5 of you will get, but I hope you 5 enjoyed it. This episode features them launching a kind of a plan against Vadic and trying to turn the tide a little bit, which I have many thoughts on, actually, when we get into it. But we also have some interesting developments with Jack's weird biology and whatever's going on with him. It's more than just inheriting a condition from Picard, which it kind of felt like in the first place, but then they kind of told us that it was just that. But then this episode seemed to go full into, nah, there's more to it than that. It's not just that. He's got shit going on. So we'll get into all that juicy stuff, and of course there's more data lore nonsense and what have it. How did you feel, Tara, about Dominion?
I liked this episode. I thought the performances were pretty great in this one, especially between Geordi and Data, or Geordi and Lore, or whoever Brent Spiner is being.
Data
I think
Lore
he's doing
before.
such a good job. Yes.
Data
and
Lore
soon.
before.
There's some soon in there too.
Okay, Data Lore before soon. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I thought their interactions were really good. Like really good, and it felt right. It felt like when Geordi was getting emotional talking about how he didn't get to really say goodbye to Data, and he regrets it, and he misses him. I thought that was kind of nice because for some reason the movies sort of paired up Picard and Data and forgot that Geordi and Data were like friends throughout the whole show. So I like that, we got to have a moment between them.
Yeah, the Geordi stuff, pleading with Data when Lore, because at one point Lore's kind of working against him because he takes over the ship controls and puts them in a lot of danger. Geordi pleading with Data to try and fight back and gain control, because it's set up early on that this partition between the personalities was put in place because it seems like Sun kind of predicted that Lore would probably win if the personalities got to fight it out, so this was like a safety guard, which is really just like the show saying Data's the underdog in this fight, so it'll feel better when he wins and beats Lore and kind of like becomes the dominant personality, or is able to merge them in a healthy way, or whatever's going to happen with them. That was probably the best stuff in the episode. I enjoyed moments in this one, but there's definitely some big glaring problems I had with this episode. I think every group of characters in this episode looks incompetent by the end in a really unsatisfying way that I think is poorly written. I think their plan, because we kind of just do a skip where Picard's talking to Jack, and like, we never have the advantage, and Picard's like, but what if we do? And then there's a really obviously sorry, that's not the word I'm looking for, ADR line is what I'm trying to say. There's a line that's added in because it's over Picard's shoulder and he's clearly not speaking, but he says, I think I've got a way to get to Vadic. I think they added that in because they didn't think the transition was smooth enough to like set up that they were about to launch a plan.
I see.
But it's really awkward because it cuts to like Vadic's ship showing up and them boarding, and they act out this plan where they kind of trap her and a bunch of her goons behind force fields around the ship. And that's all fine, but this plan results by the end of the episode in Vadic taking command of this ship and having all of them captured. So the heroes look like absolute tits by the end of this episode. But also, Vadic doesn't look that great either because she falls for the trap. In fact, one of our people even says, well, if this is a trap, this feels a bit too easy. And she's like, now we're going. And then she gets trapped immediately. And if you're going to say, yeah, but she gets out of it and she's in control by the end, I'm like, well, she does, but she didn't know Lore was going to help her. She got lucky. Like, they just lucked out that there was this rogue android on ship who wanted to help them because he hates Picard and everyone else on board. So I think every character in this episode looks incompetent by the end. Like, it was... I don't like the villains because they seem like idiots, and it's hard to root for these heroes right now because they seem like idiots. I came out of this episode thinking everyone looked bad.
Well, I guess I was thinking that that they need her to be in charge at the end for whatever plan they have, for whatever ruse they're pulling.
That is the one way out of them looking like idiots, is if this is actually part of the whole plan, which is fine if that's what they do. I don't think every detail feels like it lines up with that, though.
No, especially because they've put a lot of people in danger by letting her take the ship.
Yeah, like if this turns out to the plan the whole time is to let her take over, I'll be like, okay, that makes them less stupid, but it makes me kind of like do a side eye at the writing, because this is very much the villain letting themselves be caught, but it's the opposite. It's the heroes letting themselves, letting the villain win so that they can win later. Like
maybe. I don't know. I'm not thrilled if that's the answer, but like. That's what I was thinking when they left, because even Seven is just like, they're not going to take the bridge at the end, and then like a scene later they've taken over the bridge. So I think it was more of her saying like, don't worry, like we have a plan. It's not their ship in a way, you know.
Yeah. Honestly, when I was skimming through it again to just refresh my memory before we recorded, I was like thinking, okay, maybe this whole thing is the plan, and that's, like I say, that'll make Picard and Co look less dumb, but I don't know if I'll like that as a writing technique, because it just feels a bit cheap, given the way the rest of the episode plays out to me. I don't know if like some of the little individual decisions and moments they have make a lot of sense if the whole plan was to just let Vadic and Co win. So it's a bit weird. It made them all feel a little bit daft to me. Some interesting things to note here, though. There's a lot of interesting Vadic tidbits here. One, whoever wants Jack, who Vadic is scared of and answering to right now, is not a changeling, because they said a couple of times "you're kind" when talking to Vadic. So whoever this main villain is, they're not a changeling. So my Moriarty theory is still in play, baby. Okay. Still in play.
Maybe. I guess, I don't know. I was sort of thinking that maybe because she was a different kind of changeling, since she had been experimented on by the Federation.
Okay, that's true. So yeah, they established that she's
same with her brothers and sisters or whatever. They all had the same thing, and she sort of recruited other changelings against Starfleet together, and said that she's able to pass this ability on to them.
I don't think it's literally her brothers and sisters. I think she said brothers and sisters, meaning other changelings.
Yeah.
No, but you said
that's
that
like
there.
The line she used.
Well, yeah, but they're not literally her brothers and sisters. She just said
I know how the changelings work. All right, like if I say that there's brothers and sisters, I'm saying it in the.
Oh, okay, fine.
But I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Fine.
Even though this episode really did spoil a lot.
But by the end of the episode, they established that she's kind of a new subspecies. I still don't think whoever's in charge is a changeling, though. It still felt different to me. It felt like someone who was like not changeling speaking to a bunch of changelings. That was the impression I got from that conversation. The other stuff with Vadic, which is that she took the face of the mad Starfleet scientist who was experimenting on her and her fellow changelings in a lab before she killed her. Was an interesting bit of backstory, and it's sort of bringing up this idea of war crimes and like the idea that these changelings have a kind of a rightful dispute over what happened to them, and challenges this idea that they created this virus or disease for the changelings and then gave them a cure for it after they sort of backed down. But she kind of throws in this little detail here, and I'm assuming this is something that Deep Space Nine is going to answer for me specifically, is that Starfleet did not choose to give them anything, but someone stole it and gave it to them. I've got a funny feeling, don't tell me, but I've got a funny feeling I know who that someone is. But this stuff was fine. I had no problems with the backstory that she kind of introduced. If anything, I think her character needed it, because she was kind of one note. Like, Amanda Plummer's doing a fine job with the performance, but she's been kind of just this evil, sitting in the shadows villain by and large. That she kind of
smoking like a chimney.
She kind of needed this to just become a bit more interesting.
Lungs, though, right? I don't know, but well, I guess she does have lungs because they're more humanoid.
I don't care.
I don't know. I was just thinking, like, why would Odo ever smoke a cigarette, and would it do anything to him?
She's got a bit more to her now, and this idea that Picard actually looks remorseful and says he didn't know that this horrible thing had happened to her. I think that's quite interesting, because the idea of Picard actually sort of recognizing that Starfleet or someone in the Federation has done something wrong to these people and they deserve some kind of compensation, some recompense for it. That said, though, like 2 minutes later, him and Beverly, I'm pretty sure we're discussing, should we just kill the bitch?
Yeah, definitely.
Which felt very out of character to me.
Yeah, that was interesting, because the music started playing right when Jack and Sydney were caught in the P-ways with some baddies in it, and you hear this like dark music start playing, and the music, I think, is very intentionally so sounds a lot like a very famous theme from Game of Thrones when people were about to get massacred. Or someone was going to die.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah, so they would play this theme that sounds very close to this, and it is a very haunting theme. And
Actually,
then they show Jack and Sydney in trouble, and Lore's not allowing them to escape. And then Picard and Beverly are having this conversation about, should we just murder her?
Yeah, and they're kind of justifying it, and she's like, yeah, my compass has gone a bit off here, and they're both pulling out phasers, and I'm like, what is this? What? No, you were just being sympathetic because she'd been tortured in a lab somewhere. Why are you suddenly talking about killing her? Unless this is all part of the plan to rile her up to like whatever, but that feels a bit forced to me. Before we go on, I want to mention something, because you just reminded me something from last week that I wanted to mention that I didn't. Is that there was a bit in the music last week during when the ship was like in combat that it sounded a lot like the music from the Abrams movie, the Giacchino score. That it almost felt like it was doing the main theme from that. It didn't quite hit it, but it was getting eerily close. And I was like, is that an intentional like use? Because they're bringing in all these different themes. The Voyager theme plays in this one again. We'll talk about that scene in a bit. But
please, yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what my thought was before.
You were talking about everyone going dark.
Yeah, so I don't think that that Picard was ever going to do it, because that would seem very not Picard. It also doesn't seem very Beverly, but she's been this, my son's been in trouble for a while now, and she's telling him that she's losing her moral compass. It seems very much like when he's discussing it with Beverly, he's just testing to see where she's at rather than them actually deciding like they're going to do this.
That also reminds me, actually, there was an inconsistency. I think last week she said something like, I took an oath to help people or something, and she was talking about, not hurting people. And all I could always have in my head was flashbacks to the opening scene of this season where she's like John Ramboing her way through bad guys.
Disintegrating them.
And I'm like, yeah. I don't know, that didn't seem very pacifist there, Beverly. Just putting that out there. Slight hiccup in that moral code.
Yeah, I don't know if they've explained it much yet, other than like, well, they're changelings, so they can be anything, so you have to destroy them, otherwise they might shapeshift into something else, or I don't know, maybe stun doesn't work on them.
Yeah, maybe. So we have all this, and we've mentioned, so we need to talk about Jack and Sydney. Right, we need to talk about Jack and Sydney and some of the weird stuff that goes on. Because early on in this episode, they're in the turbo lift, and he's kind of starting to flirt. And she's like, "Oh, I've got really small quarters because I'm just I'm just an ensign." And he's like, "Well, everyone's left the ship other than the skeleton crew, so I just picked myself the nice biggest room I could find. Maybe you should come and see it." And he's kind of, they sort of set this up last week, but there's a bit of an attraction. And then, did it feel like really random to you that all of a sudden we're introducing he has telepathy?
Yeah.
His eyes go red, and it's like he's hearing her thoughts. And I think later on confirmed it was to some extent real. In this scene, I was sort of debating, like, is he really hearing her thoughts? Is this just him thinking he's hearing her thoughts? Kind of thing. Yeah. I thought the wiggle room was there for in this particular moment. I will say, if I had a thought, like, because she thinks, she's thinking about, he's flirting with me, blah, blah, blah. Maybe if he just tried something subtle, like, holding my hand or whatever, and he goes to, like, touch her hand, and she kind of, like, weirds out and is like, how did he know to touch my hand? I don't know if that one example would be enough for me to like think something weird was going on. I would probably buy internally that was just a coincidence that I thought that, and then the person did that. It's, you know, it's not like, I think once is not that weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a very specific thing, right, that she says in her mind, and then he does the action. So maybe it was just coincidental, but like she's also saying like, why is he looking at me so odd? And when she turns around and asks him a question, he doesn't reply in any way.
Yeah, she says that a few times actually in her head. She says, "Why is he looking like that?" Because there's a few times where he gets into this trance. He's like red eyes, and he's like staring at her.
He's very intense.
Yeah, is he trying to seduce me? Is this the Picard way?
Mm-hmm. He's doing the Charlie X face.
Oh, what if he is? What if this is Charlie X? This is what it's all tied back in.
It's a little bit of the Kubrick stare, right?
Yes. But this actually, it comes back in a kind of a fun way later, because they're obviously leading the goons around, and they end up trapped in between multiple force fields. So they try to beam them out, but this is when lore starts affecting things. So they're kind of trapped with the bad guys, and eventually the force fields come down, so the bad guys start fighting her. Not him, there's still one force field up, but the one between her and the bad guy breaks down, and she's not as much of a fighter. So he does this thing where he's telepathically linked, so he starts I won't quite say puppeting her, but he's like shadow boxing with her, and like she's doing all the moves he's doing, so it's kind of like he's linked to her telepathically, and like sharing what to do in the fight, so instinctively it's happening right away. Mm-hmm. And she wins the fight, and she looks at him like, "What the hell was that? That was weird. You were just in my head or something."
Quantum leapt into my brain, took over all my actions.
I mean, honestly, like, as much as the telepathy thing did feel like out of nowhere, I mean, obviously he's been having these visions of the veins and the door and all the rest of it. We've been seeing that stuff. I do think, though, they set it up early in the episode, and then this was a fun payoff to it, which is that he's using it to help her win a fight. I appreciate actually how much Cindy's become kind of a character, because at first she was just like, I thought she was going to get the Discovery treatment of just being the person on the bridge who flies the ship, but she's not a character though. She's just there. She's there pushing buttons, but she's actually become a character who, has a personality, has her own plot now with Jack. There's more going on there, which is nice.
No, I'm glad. Even though my first introduction to her, I was not thrilled.
Well, I don't remember.
It was her having a discussion with Seven about how her dad's a legend.
Oh, yes. Well, that wasn't the very first scene. He would have liked you
because you didn't have friends just like him.
That wasn't her very first. Our first scene, though, was the awkward introduction on the bridge with Picard.
You're right.
She was all giddy about it.
Pretty sure it was the same episode, but yeah.
I mean, it might have been. I don't know. I can't remember. I think this stuff between those two, we're fine. The opening of the episode had a bit of a cameo for people who are Voyager fans, which I've not seen, but I kind of like I've seen like cast photos. I kind of got the gist of it, and then obviously
Tim Russ was in one of the movies also.
Was he? Oh, okay, that makes sense. Seven's like testing him to see if he's a changeling, and they can't tell from his voice. They've got no way to detect it until the end of the episode, at which Beverly does come up with a way to detect these new changelings who are like biologically masking themselves much better. But she actually thinks that he's okay because he gets something right, and the Voyager theme plays, and it's all very calm. Mm-hmm. But then she says something else, and he completely gets it wrong. And she's like, "No, you're not Tuvok. You're some prick. You're some watery prick. How dare you?"
Yeah, just when you had your guard down.
Yeah. So it's basically establishing that like they can't trust anyone. That they've tried to contact multiple. It doesn't sound like this is the first person they've reached out to, but they keep hitting changelings. They keep what did you think of this opening scene before we go into it?
Well, I mean, I am a fan of Voyager. It's pretty low on my list when it comes to Star Trek series, but the first season is great, and the characters are great, and the premise is great. So there's a lot to love in Voyager, and there's some really fantastic episodes. But overall, it's a show that doesn't live up to its potential. And a lot of it has to do with some of the side characters that were really well set up in the early seasons, and then just were, put to the side for the more popular characters. And one of them is Tuvok, which you see here, who is set up to be like one of the best characters in Star Trek. He's such a good Vulcan. Like real classical Vulcan, you know. And so it was just nice to see that he had, of everyone, you know, so far from Voyager, other than Seven, we got to see Tim Russ back, because I feel like he should have had more in the original show in Voyager.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But this whole being able to detect people comes back around, like I said, because Beverly, like, they even have a conversation before the plan is hitched, where they're saying if we can genetically sort of like separate them from the rest of the changelings, maybe we can do something. And the subject of some sort of virus or like attacking them biologically comes up again before that's even mentioned. That, you know, this was some dark thing that Starfleet did once upon a time that we're going to have to like maybe make amends for. But the plan that they're suspecting now, or they think is happening, is that they want Jack and they want Picard's body because they want to make a perfect cut. So basically, Picard's DNA won't all be in his body, so they need to sort of fill in some blanks with Jack because he's his son, and that will make a perfect copy that will get into Frontiers Day to do whatever their plan is. Which seems fair enough, although I'm not entirely convinced that like, they don't seem to know at this point that there's someone that the villain's working for, right? We do. And I'm not entirely convinced that it's her, because she doesn't really care about Jack, because she even says that in the episode later on, that Jack's not for her. Like, she's doing this to answer to someone else. So I'm just wondering, like, is it actually her that cares about getting Picard's DNA in Jack, or is it just who she's working for? Is it the person who's behind all this who wants to do the Frontiers Day thing that they're going to do, or is that the changelings who want to do that, or are they just or is it all just this person who's in charge and the changelings are just aligned with everything they want to do? Like, I'm not sure what the breakdown of that hierarchy is and who's got the goals specifically, but
yeah, I'm not sure either. Obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I think that it sounds like Vadic knows something about Jack, and he doesn't really belong to Beverly, is something that she says. Like, you should know something about that. And Beverly says, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then Amanda Plummer gives a reaction like, "Girl, you know what I'm talking about." So yeah, maybe she just said that line because she was right next to Picard.
I'll be honest, like, turning out that he's not really their son, or there's something, I don't know, like, I feel like I was happy that they kind of got it out the way, they revealed that he was the son early on, but if that was only because they're going to swerve it again later, and that he's not really Picard's son or something, I'm going to probably be annoyed at that, because it's just like more swerving for the sake of swerving's sake.
Maybe, I don't know.
And I saw
if it plays out fine, then I won't care about it.
I saw a theory online, actually, which I don't think anyone seemed to like this theory, but it was like a tangible connection to something from TNG. So I think Vadic hums a tune at some point in this episode.
Three Blind Mice.
Yes,
that's what she does.
Yeah. So there's a connection to a TNG episode with that track, that song. And it's an episode where someone or something makes Riker think he's got a son. And I saw some speculation that this was a hint that Jack is not really Picard's son, or he's not really either of their sons, and it's all been some trick by someone. And to be honest, all these apocalyptic visions do kind of lend themselves to there being some kind of reveal that he's, you know, there's something else going on than just, oh, he's just their kid.
Okay. Yeah, there is an episode with Riker. I guess that's the episode that they're talking about, where Riker has a kid.
Yeah.
Suddenly. Yeah. Okay.
And he tries to teach the kid that song on the trombone or whatever. That's the connection.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But, so it may be thematically tied with that idea.
See, I thought because she like whistles such a simple tune, it made me think of, well, I mean, the show has already made you think of the scene of Data, who's also whistling a simple tune, Pop Goes the Weasel, to work on his ability to be more human. And maybe since the changelings are nothing like humans, but they're forced to look like them for this as a sacrifice, that the whistling kind of connects that theme together.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that comparison. In fact, actually, there's a nice little detail she mentions that all of the changelings that have agreed to, for lack of a better word, change into this different version of a changeling, they can keep this more human sort of biological state. They're in pain and they're going to die quicker than the other changelings. So they're basically sacrificing a long life and a life of comfort to fight in this war. So they're all like basically devoted to this mission. They're devoted to whatever they're doing because they're extremists, they're loyalists, they're
they really hate Starfleet.
They really hate Starfleet, yeah. So
yeah, I was gonna bring up before when we were talking about Tuvok that the question that the thing rather that Seven brings up that causes him to give away that he's a changeling is she suggests that they would go to this certain planet, and Tuvok said, sure, if that's what you guys need to ride to, we can drop you off there. And then Seven goes, a true Vulcan would never agree to go to this planet because of their anti-Kolinar protesting. I'm like, what? I thought that was some interesting lore that there would be anti-Kolinar people. Are they Vulcan? I don't know. That there would be protests for the anti-Kolinar. Like, I mean, isn't Kolinar just the expelling of all emotions?
Maybe the Romulans?
Maybe they are Vulcans. Maybe they're a Vulcan sect that are just like, no, that's not the true way. The true Vulcan way.
I don't know. It was an interesting little bit.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I did think the transition from the first part of the episode into the second part, and when I say that, I mean Picard saying maybe we can do something, and then it just cuts to like this plan already in action. I did feel that a little jarring in the pacing, where even I was kind of like, wait, we're already in the plan. Like, there's no other like teases or build up to it. It just kind of felt like we're already there. It felt a little abrupt and like it was maybe missing a few. I don't know, just like
emotional... a ready room scene.
Sorry,
or like a conference room scene.
Maybe. I mean, not necessarily, because like if they're playing it like a heist where they don't want the audience to know the plan, right? So we can have some fun as it's playing out. That's one thing. But I guess that's part of the problem, is it doesn't really feel like that when it's playing out. It doesn't feel like, like a heist movie where it's like, oh, and then this is how this part works, this is how this part works. It just kind of feels like
the blueprints on the table.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like they screw up, and maybe that is part of the plan, but I don't necessarily think it'll feel that satisfying when it's like, aha, this was the plan all along, to meet whoever your leader is.
That's a trope that I hate.
What?
That I despise. That every random decision somebody made was actually all part of the big plan.
Oh, I hate it too. There's nothing more glaring to me in a movie where you get to the end of the story and the villain's like, this was all part of the plan, but then you stop and think about it like, yeah, but your plan then hinged on the fact that this other character would decide to like go left instead of right here, when there's no way you could have known that. Like, there's too many variables along the way for this to be something you planned all of.
Right.
Yes, I hate that too. It's just crappy writing.
It definitely feels lazy.
It's that thing where it's like a cheap way of trying to make the villain, or not always a villain, but usually a villain, feel smart, and instead it just feels phony because you're like, but no, because this isn't intelligence. This is like this is like psychic stuff.
Yeah.
They can't possibly know this, so it's just magic, and therefore unsatisfying because it doesn't follow any rules whatsoever. Yeah.
Do we think that maybe whatever it is that links Picard and his son together, other than DNA, is Borg related?
Yeah, I've seen this come up actually a few times over the last week, is the idea that it's something to do with something left in Picard from his Borg time was passed on, and maybe that's what these visions are. It would make a lot of sense if that's the case. I think when I heard that theory, my first thought was, oh yeah, maybe whoever this is, whatever's in Jack, maybe it's something to do with like maybe making a perfect disguise or whatever. Because I suppose there's an interesting thing here with the changelings, at least from what I've gathered from the way that they've spoke on the show so far, is that this, the Great Link and all that, it does kind of feel like it is kind of comparable to the Borg and how they're all connected in a way. Like the way they talk about it, at least spiritually, is kind of like almost like they're aspiring to be like the Borg, where they are all one great puddle in the sky.
Yeah.
So maybe there is kind of like a desire for, but then again, I don't think the person running the show behind Vadic is a changeling. I think that's someone else. So maybe I go back to Moriarty theory and say, oh, Moriarty wants a Picard body to walk around in. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'll take your son, Picard, or something. I don't know.
Maybe. You want this to be Moriarty's Wrath of Khan, but I do kind of enjoy the idea that this is just the Dominion's Wrath of Khan.
No, I mean, I think that works as well, and I say that as someone who's not. I'm only halfway through season 1 of Deep Space Nine. I say
yeah,
because
season
I think
2 is when you first hear about Dominion.
I think it's interesting to use something from Deep Space Nine to be the payoff in this season. I think that is quite fascinating. But it did feel very Wrath of Khan early on in this season, and I think Moriarty would be a very interesting choice to take it in if we're going to get more of him, and it's the real him, from Next Gen.
If you're looking at all the threads that are maybe still loose from the storylines throughout the series, that is definitely one of them.
And they made a point of reminding us of his existence.
Yeah.
No, they did. They reminded us he existed, and Riker even said,
I know, I just think it's funny that you really want this to be right.
Why is that funny?
It is funny. The Moriarty storyline?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it was always kind of out there.
That don't make sense. I would buy why he's pissed that he was tricked, and because that was his thing in the first place. It would make complete sense to me that he shows up. Somehow he's realized he's in like a simulation, and he started to like infect like computers and stuff in the real world, and like hatch a plan and whatever. And he could talk through the changeling. The changeling face thing. It isn't Logan Moriarty, admittedly, but he, like. Anything that's just...
He wants to look spooky.
Anything that's just data going to like a thing to display something, he could be doing that, He doesn't have the physical body to do that. So I think there's potential in that all here plan still, but we'll see if that's where they go with it. I'm not necessarily convinced they are, obviously. If there's one thing modern Trek shows have taught me is to not get excited about the big reveal, because they've almost always, since Discovery Season 1, been immensely disappointing.
Lower Decks is a great show.
Yeah, but does that do the big mystery thing where they reveal at the end of the season what something really is going on? I don't think does it. I don't think it does.
I mean, they have season-long arcs, but I don't recall any big baddie reveal.
Nah.
Most of the time, their long-running baddies have been the who are the dumb species? I already forgot their name. The species that are really unintelligent. Yeah. Unintelligent, and they have to they kidnap Geordi because they don't know how to fix their own engine.
Okay.
The Packlids. There it is.
Okay, yes. Very good. Yeah, so I mean, I hope wherever this goes is a satisfying and makes sense. I really do, because I want it to click. More so. Like, it's a credit to, episodes, 4 and 5, that I actually care enough now that I want it to work, whereas before I was kind of just like, this is going to be shit, I know it's going to be shit, so I'm not going to care. I care a little bit, because they actually did do a couple of good episodes, and this episode wasn't, bad, but it definitely was, again, more mixed for me overall, because some of the things did feel a bit, a bit in the sort of lazy writing side of, just jumping ahead and, things here and there. There are some interesting things brought up, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I like this episode. I was actually not going to do season 3 of Picard, but I got talked back into it, and I'm glad it's paying off, because I thought I would just skip season 3.
Oh, you
after season 2 was so bad.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah, I don't know. It's only a 3-season show. I've watched 2. I should might as well cross it off the list at a certain point.
Yeah.
The sunk cost fallacy, I suppose. But yeah, yeah, mixed episode for me, but I there's still some things in there that I enjoyed, and some of the you know, like I say, Geordi pleading with Data sort of regaining control for a bit at the end of the episode. Like, those were moments. Picard and Geordi both agreeing that they didn't want to live through losing Data again, that it would be too painful. You know, that's the sort of thing that makes sense, and it kind of works because it feels like it taps into the history of the show rather than just a cheap pop. It's something that makes sense that these characters would feel affected by that. So, yeah. So, that's good. Actually, just before we wrap up, though, they did announce Starfleet Academy this week. Since you're the Trek head, thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, the more the merrier. I don't know. Hopefully they don't have a Boothby appearance. I hope that they feel restrained and not enough not to have like a Boothby plaque or something on the wing of Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, I mean, it's still Kurtzman involved with it, so I'm not exactly getting my hopes up that it's going to be anything great, but... I
mean, it's a whole new premise that we've never really seen before or explored, except through a couple episodes with Wesley Crusher, but that's it.
Yeah. I saw a comment suggesting maybe Telly will be in it, maybe if it's set like at post-Discovery, because she kind of went to teach at the Academy.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I don't know if I've seen anything confirming that it's set in that time period, because let's face it, Starfleet Academy, you can do that show pretty much at any part of the timeline. Like, you could do it next gen days, you could do it original series days, you could do it any time.
Ooh, what about the motion picture stage where everyone had beige onesies?
I think that's exactly why they won't pick that time period, because they don't want to use the beige onesies.
The beige and grey onesies.
Yeah. No, maybe they'll go just after that, though. They'll go with all the red. Everyone's a red shirt. Anyone can die. I mean, I love
the red jacket. It's very military. It's very like, you know, when Kirk is going casual because he's got the flap open. It's very structured. I like the look of it a lot, but I don't know. I like the clean, sleek. Oh, the uniforms in this episode actually were very strange. They were very like leathery. They had like a leather badass version of their. Yeah,
even Jack was wearing uniform. One. Where the red on it was quite subtle, but it does have the red top as well. You know.
Yeah, it looked like the same one that the Captain Shaw was wearing.
Yeah, for some reason half of them changed it. Like, Geordi was still wearing his proper uniform, which, you know, looks good. It's like just like a modern take on the...
Well, he beamed over. Like, he didn't bring like a day pack or anything.
Yeah, but everyone else was still wearing their uniforms at least from the crew of this ship were still wearing their uniforms last episode. This is a change this episode.
Yeah.
Shaw's changed his clothes.
He's got his battle station gear on, I guess.
But it's not battle. It's just more casual, though. That doesn't make any sense to me. Geordi's uniform, though, is more of a modern take on... Not even Next Gen. It's more of a Deep Space Nine outfit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because the colour's at the top. Because Next Gen was black at the top with the colour in the chest, or the stomach area, you know?
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine flipped it. I don't know. What does Voyager do? Does Voyager have Deep Space Nine uniforms, or does it have Next Gen
they're
uniforms?
Closer to Deep Space Nine ones.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I can't quite recall.
The Deep Space Nine ones do look quite good. They're probably a slight improvement over Next Gen, as far as uniforms go. And obviously we have nostalgia for the original series, but there's a reason why those just bright jumpers aren't.
They were probably the most comfortable, though.
They're probably the most comfortable, but that's not the point of them.
Except for the women, they definitely had the least amount of comfort.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, no need for onesies. It can be two separate pieces. I have no need for a onesie. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. New Trek, please. Straight to my veins. Thank you.
Well, Discovery's ending. Picard's obviously was always going to end with season 3 anyway, so I guess they're due a new show to launch. So this is kind of replacing one of those two, or both. So
we'll have Academy and Strange New Worlds, and then the animated stuff.
Yeah. Strange New Worlds coming back in June, so, you know, looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well,
I hope
guess
I like it.
Strange New Worlds has easily been the best of these new live action shows. It's baffling to me that you're...
It's just the captain. I just don't like Pike.
You and your Pikel hatred.
It's not gonna stick.
I'll make it stick. So anyway, that's our thoughts on the Dominion episode of Star Trek Picard. We'll be back next time with episode 8. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can support the content and keep it all coming by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there, or you can hit us with a one-time super thanks on YouTube if that's more your thing. But any and all support is appreciated, so thank you very much, and we will see you next time. So keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?